Trump and the Power of Action. Donald J. Trump's presidency redefined what leadership meant in the modern era. For decades, American politics had been dominated by what I would call performers rather than producers, by men and women who learned the language of compassion but not the labor of results. Trump's arrival ended that age of words. He entered politics not as a rhetorician but as a builder, a man whose life had been spent turning sketches into reality, a real man who walked the walk. When he stepped into the White House, he did not see a symbol to be admired. He saw a system to be rebuilt. The country he inherited was exhausted from endless promises. It had heard for years that hope and change were coming, that transformation was on the horizon, that progress was inevitable. Yet factories had closed, families had fractured, and faith in government had collapsed. Trump's first instinct was always motion. He was not interested in how a decision sounded but in what it could achieve. Every meeting, every negotiation, and every press conference was treated like an opportunity to move something forward and to break ground. What set him apart was not ideology but intention. He did not govern to please a class, to sustain a narrative. He governed to keep a promise. He viewed the presidency as a moral contract with the American people, a relationship in which his word was his bond. When he said he would protect the nation's borders, he meant physically and immediately. When he said he would rebuild industry, he meant factories, not slogans. He entered a capital city obsessed with deliberation and proved that deliberation without execution results in decay. To Trump, inaction was the greatest sin of leadership. He had built skyscrapers under budget and ahead of schedule. He saw no reason why government could not do the same. His impatience for bureaucracy was not arrogance but conviction. That time itself was a moral resource. Every hour wasted in debate was an hour stolen from the American worker. Every regulation that strangled a small business was a betrayal of the promise that honest effort should yield reward. He understood that leadership was not the art of appeasing everyone but the duty to serve someone, that someone was the citizen who worked, paid taxes, and expected competence from his government. Trump's critics often mistook his directness for aggression, his confidence for recklessness, yet beneath the surface, he had a clear philosophy. Government should function with the same urgency as the people it represents. He believed that prosperity, security, and dignity were not partisan goals but moral imperatives. His insistence on measurable results, such as on walls built, taxes lowered, and factories reopened, was not a businessman's project. It was the practical expression of faith in American ability. Under his leadership, policy ceased to be an abstraction. Immigration reform meant real enforcement, not symbolic speeches. Economic revival meant paychecks, not press releases. Foreign policy meant contracts renegotiated in America's favor, not handshakes for the cameras. Trump's governing philosophy was that credibility is earned through completion. Every project finished, every promise kept, and every goal met was a restoration of trust between leader and nation. Few issues defined Trump's presidency more clearly than immigration. For decades, Washington had spoken endlessly about comprehensive reform, yet nothing changed. Borders remained devastated and communities affected under the weight of illegal crossings, and the American worker watched wages stagnate as industries filled with underpaid labor. Politicians on both sides promised security, but each new administration delivered little beyond another round of debate. Trump recognized that the paralysis was not accidental, it was convenient. Washington thrived on unsolved problems because perpetual problems justified perpetual power. Trump broke that pattern. He treated immigration as a straightforward matter of law and order. To him, sovereignty was not an abstract word, it was the right of a nation to decide who may enter and who must depart. He believed that compassion divorced from legality was sentimentality, and that no country can survive long when its laws are optional. His approach was not merely about building a wall, although the wall became its most visible symbol. It was about rebuilding the will of a government to defend its own legitimacy. He increased deportations of criminal offenders and redirected federal resources toward enforcement. Rather than rhetoric, he confronted cities that refused to comply with federal law, arguing that a city cannot claim virtue while shielding those who break the very rules that protect its residents. His policies were controversial, but the results were measurable. Border crossings declined, enforcement morale rose, and for the first time in years, the public saw evidence that the federal government intended to honor its most basic duty, to control the borders of the nation it governed. Trump understood that the immigration issue cut to the heart of American identity. A country that cannot control its borders cannot claim to control its destiny. His insistence on enforcement was not rooted in hostility to outsiders, but in respect for the meaning of citizenship. Every lawful immigrant who waited in line, who paid fees and obeyed regulations, deserved a system that rewarded integrity rather than violation. By restoring order to the border, Trump sought to restore honor to the process itself. The debate surrounding his actions revealed a deeper divide in the American conscience. For decades, the political and media elite had conflated restraint with virtue. They equated firmness with cruelty and leniency with morality. Trump refused that false choice. He believed that mercy without justice invites chaos, and that the truest compassion is to enforce the rules that keep families, workers, and communities safe. His moral clarity in this regard, though unfashionable, marked a profound shift in the nation's political psychology. He showed that defending one's laws is not an act of hatred, but an expression of self-respect. If immigration enforcement represented the restoration of sovereignty, Trump's economic policy represented the restoration of confidence. He inherited a nation still scarred by recession and suffocated by regulation. For years, America's entrepreneurs had been told that the era of manufacturing was over, that the global economy had outgrown them, and that their only role was to adapt to decline. Trump rejected that fatalism. He saw economic revival not as a dream, but as an achievable plan grounded in common sense and discipline. His 2017 tax reform was the cornerstone of that plan. By lowering corporate tax rates and simplifying individual brackets, he unleashed capital that had long been trapped by overtaxation. Small businesses, whom are the true engines of American prosperity, found breathing room again. Entrepreneurs who had once been crushed by compliance costs now expanded, hired, and reinvested. Trump viewed each regulation repealed as a moral victory for self-reliance. He measured success not in abstract GDP percentages, but in tangible results such as jobs created, paychecks earned, and families lifted. For decades, politicians had spoken about helping the middle class while designing systems that rewarded dependence. Trump reversed that philosophy. He insisted that prosperity must reward initiative, not victimhood. His policies revived optimism among workers who had long felt invisible. Minority unemployment dropped to record lows, household incomes climbed, and domestic investment surged. To the skeptics who called his approach simplistic, the results answered for him. He believed that economic strength was not merely fiscal policy. It was a matter of national pride.